Hey, how's it going, everybody? Harrison George here with the Harrison George team. Really appreciate you checking out this video. Obviously, if you like some of the stuff that we put up here, if you have other questions and you want us to answer them, we'd love the opportunity to answer them. Feel free to leave a comment. Obviously, smash the smash button, like the like button, give us a subscription, whatever you guys want to do. We'd obviously really appreciate that. We just want to provide you with some information. And as you know, we've talked about this all-in-one loan through and through, and still we get conversations saying, hey, we don't know how this loan works. I'm just going to kind of do a brief overview of this product. I'm not going to get overly specific on it. Clearly check out some of our previous videos on how this loan works. But at the end of the day, we like to kind of look at this loan like a big credit card. I know it's not a big credit card, and I'm sure I'm hearing a bunch of people call me or text me saying it's not a credit card, and I get that. But think of it like a credit card for the time being. So if you have a credit limit on your credit card of $10,000 and you owe $4,000 on that credit card, currently you still have another $6,000 you can use. But you owe $4,000, so your payment is based off of $4,000. Even though you have access to $10,000, your payment is only based off of $4,000. So if you apply $3,000 to the credit card, you now owe $1,000 on your credit card. Your payment is now going to be calculated off of $1,000, and the remaining limit on your credit is $9,000. You still have access to use $9,000. Keep that in mind, because this all-in-one loan, like we've discussed before, is a big line of credit. At the end of the day, it is a refinance. You go through the refinance process. You send us documents, you fill out an application, we order an appraisal, the whole 9 yards. As long as you fit certain criteria, and again, we've talked about that certain criteria through and through a dozen of times, but if you want, we can give more information for you on that if you have questions on it. But at the end of the day, this individual not only is refinancing their home into a new loan, but that new loan is a line of credit, and it is paired with a checking and savings account, mostly just a checking account. The checking account is what you are familiar with. Any other checking account you've ever experienced, imagine that. It has a debit card, you can get checkbooks, you deposit money into it through your payroll deposits, you can pay bills out of it, the whole 9 yards. It's exactly the same to what you're familiar with. The only difference with this checking account is that at the end of every single day, whether you put money into it or don't put money into it, the checking account ends at a balance of 0. You don't lose access to your money when you put your money into this account. All that happens is it has a function that sweeps every dollar that you put into the checking account against your mortgage balance, that line of credit we were talking about. So if you make $5,000 on a Friday, $5,000 sits in that checking account all day until 11:59 that night. At 11:59, your checking account goes to 0. Your money gets swept from the checking account and gets applied to your mortgage balance. And now you owe $5,000 less on your mortgage. You still have access to it because it's a line of credit and you have a max limit of line of credit. I've had a lot of people saying, hey, how's the payment on this all-in-one loan actually calculated? And it's actually a little easier than most people have thought. The all-in-one loan calculates payment on a daily basis. So let's just take each month being a 30-day month. It takes your balance at the end of day 1 and it multiplies it by the interest rate and then it divides it by 365. That is going to be a ledgered payment. It's not actually paid out in that instant, it just adds it to a ledger. Day 1 payment is $55. And then let's say the next day you make $5,000 and now your mortgage balance goes down by $5,000. So instead of your payment being calculated at, let's say, $100,000, your payment on day 2 is calculated off of $95,000. It does this $95,000 times the interest rate, divide by 365, and then it ledgers it on the side. And now it does this day after day after day. And a lot of people kind of start to get confused and say, okay, great. Now that I've put the money into the account, when should I take this money out of the account? Most people that go into this product aren't living paycheck to paycheck, and this product can help people get out of the trap that they've gotten stuck in. So if they're able to use their credit card, making sure that they pay that off at the end of every single month, then they can technically use the credit card, get the points with their credit card, and then towards the end of the month, once that credit card statement is due, pull the money out of the account. So if you think about it, this individual who put $5,000 in day 2 is now actually going to see their balance remain $5,000 less from day 2 till day 22. And then on day 22, they say, great, I need to pay my credit card. I want to pay $1,000 to my credit card. I want to pay it off. Perfect. They pull the money out of the all-in-one, and this functionality of this all-in-one payment system is very, very simple. All you need to do is pay it like any other credit card you've ever paid. If and when you set up your account, you link your Wells Fargo and your Chase and whomever you bank with, and vice versa, you go to Chase and Wells Fargo and you link your all-in-one. Now they're talking to each other. And you pay your Wells Fargo credit card, $1,000 to it. From the checking account of this product, it automatically will pull it from the line of credit where your money is sitting, put it into the checking account, and then disperse it from the checking account later. Now, when that happens, your checking account is going to show a negative balance. That's not some sort of overdraft situation. All it's saying is, hey, there's $1,000 that we have ledgered to go to pay this Wells Fargo credit card. On the 22nd day of that month, your balance is now collectively lower by $4,000. So it does the $4,000 calculation on the 22nd day. But for those first 21, 22 days that you've had that balance, $5,000 less, you've taken full advantage of your paycheck for the longest period of time. Over time, it's going to get faster and faster because you owe less and less, and you're saving more and more, and you're paying the thing off slightly faster. That's how people pay this loan off in between 5 and 10 years. So that's kind of a general breakdown on how this loan works. It's not anything crazy. What really needs to happen is start changing how you think of your money, as opposed to your money being this thing that you have access to, earning you essentially nothing, sitting somewhere that the bank gets to utilize to lend back to you at a drastically higher interest rate. We're just trying to say, hey, look, let's look at this scenario. Let's put your money into your loan, not losing access to it and allowing for you to pay your home off faster. We're essentially changing the calculation done in terms of financing. We've talked about it a million times before. All we're really trying to say is let's let your money work for you even between when you're going to spend it. And this loan, not meant for everybody, but can be certainly something that everybody can work towards, is just the final product. I like to look at this as a grand scheme of things. We have a product called homefundit, and I can get into that later. But at the end of the day, it's a way for people to crowdsource their money, meaning that if they're getting married or having a baby, instead of saying, hey, mom, I want a toaster, instead they can go, great, here's my campaign. Why don't you go ahead and donate money to my campaign? Now, us, CMG, will actually contribute money to that campaign to a certain amount, $2 to $1. So if you have somebody contribute $5, we'll contribute $10, up to $2,000, and there's limits depending on the loan amount and purchase price, just like there is limits in everything. But that product helps people get into homes, because we're not anti-30-year, we're not anti-helping people get into homes, we're just anti-saying, hey, the 30-year mortgage is the best product for you. Once somebody gets into a home and they've gotten into their first home and maybe even their second home and they've built up equity and gone further through their career, they're gonna look at getting that normal conventional loan. They may even look at getting into a 5 and 7 year ARM. And again, I think that those products are phenomenal for the right person. But at the end of the day, we're trying to say, let's build the string, the beginning and end, the bookends of somebody's financial landscape. A 30-year mortgage is phenomenal for the people that need to get into a 30-year mortgage, that can handle a 30-year mortgage, the consistency of the payments without changing the way that they go about their finances. And you know, as a side note, I think that these 5-year and 7-year ARMs get people into a lot of trouble, because a 5-year and 7-year ARM, at least in my opinion, is just another way of saying, hey, look, we're gonna shine this flashy thing over here of a lower interest rate than 30-year mortgages, but in 5 and 7 years, when it becomes adjustable, you're going to be incentivized to refinance because you don't want an adjustable mortgage, because we've been taught that adjustable mortgages are bad. They caused the whole 2008 crash, which is a whole other story, which we can get into if you guys are interested. But the 5 and 7 year ARMs are just saying, hey, look, you're gonna spend about 30% of what you borrow in interest in those first 5 to 7 years. Then you're gonna start all over by refinancing into maybe another 5 or 7 year ARM. You're just going to keep doing that. If you were going to be in a home for the rest of your life, you're just gonna kind of keep starting that clock over. Values are gonna go up, you're gonna slowly pay that balance down, and you're gonna start that over. You're gonna pull money out to pay for the closing costs and do it all over again. I'd be curious to see if anybody out there has purchased 2 or 3 homes, and if you guys have all of your documents, I would love to talk with you. Heck, I'd even love to have you on the show and talk with you about, look, what is it that's going on? You bought your first home, you refinanced when rates got low. You spent this amount of money in interest in these first 5 years, you refied and you got this great interest rate. Your family grew and you bought a new home, and you got an ARM. and now you spent this much money in interest. Well, what would it have been if you didn't refinance into that lower interest rate? Because yes, it saved you money, but you only lived in the home for 3 years, so it essentially was a break even with your closing costs. I would be so curious to look at somebody's actual scenario, a true case study, to say, this is what you could have done, this is where you were. You essentially did the exact same thing, but you went through this whole process and perhaps had additional amounts of stress that you otherwise didn't need to have. So if somebody's out there, please feel free to reach out. I'd be curious to talk with you. But once you get to the 30-year mortgage, whether it's an ARM, the 5-year fixed, or just a 30-year fixed, that's pretty much it. For those people that have kind of begun to work their way past paying off all of their debt, they're in a good financial situation, there isn't really anything better than the 30-year mortgage, other than this all-in-one loan. This is kind of the end of that financial spectrum of being able to buy real estate and do it in the most efficient way. And that's why we like educating people about this. It's just a different kind of product that allows for the people who are able to sit down, take a step back and look at their finances and say, okay, where are we? Where do we want to go? And how can we get there? We get phone calls all the time, 6, 12, 18 months later saying, I paid my home off by 30, 40, 50, 70 grand. I've had somebody call me about 6 years later saying, hey, I paid my home off. This is amazing. I didn't know what it was going to do at the time. I trusted the math and I understood what you were saying, but I just kind of had a little bit of skepticism behind it, like most people do when they hear something new. But it's so cool to understand that there are people out there that have paid their home off, that never changed how they live their life, but if they were to remain in a 30-year mortgage, they would have spent 3 times as much of what they borrowed in interest. It's just astronomical to see some of the amazing conversations that we've had with some of these people. We get this one all the time, and it's really, why doesn't everyone do this? And even more importantly after that, how come this product is gaining more popularity? So let's start with the first question. The all-in-one loan is not a loan that's going to be available for everybody. Unfortunately, not everyone is going to fit the qualifications. You're talking about 700 plus credit scores, depending on primary or investment property, you might be looking at 720 credit scores. You're looking at a 20% down payment or 20% equity position for a primary residence, even more for investment properties. On top of that, you're talking about low debt to income ratios. And lastly, we're talking about reserves. Reserves outside of your down payment, outside of equity in home, outside of equity in equipment, etc. We're talking about checking, savings, stocks, bonds, 401k. And each one of those designations is done for a purpose. We want to see that people have good payment histories, clearly. Like almost everything, they want to see good payment history. They want to show low debt to income ratios. And people with low debt to income ratios should, in theory, be saving more money monthly. We want to show that those people that are saving more money monthly actually are saving more money monthly. There are plenty of times, and I'm sure many of you have said, hey, look, we make X, we spend $2,500 less than X every single month. And if we look at your bank account and your bank account shows $2,000 in it, then there's something that's missing. Every extra dollar that you're saving is going towards something. Well, then I don't consider that saving money every single month. You're looking at that and saying, hey, we have the ability to save $2,500, but we aren't saving $2,500. And that reserve component, although is a pretty high number, depending on your line of credit, it's 10 or 15% of the total line of credit. So for $500,000, you're looking at $50,000 or $75,000 elsewhere. That's why when pairing this with that whole life policy, it works so well. Because individuals not only can utilize their money in sticking into those whole life policies, they can also put that money into those whole life policies, still have access to that money, just like the all-in-one loan. They pair and they mesh so well together that is really like a well-oiled machine. And lastly, the question that we get often is, why is this gaining more popularity? And I think that the reason, in my personal opinion, as to why this is gaining more popularity now, I mean, this product has been around in the United States since 2005. This product is gaining more popularity because from the late teens into the early 20s, rates were, and in fact, in a very attractive position. And many of you probably have one of those really attractive interest rates. As rates started to go up after COVID, then we started seeing people question things more, asking themselves and asking why they're paying so much. Yes, I have this great 4%, 5%, 3% interest rate. but what am I really spending in interest? And I encourage all of you to go and ask your loan officer if you've closed a transaction in the last few years, or maybe you have the documents, to look at the document underneath your closing disclosure. It's like the third or fourth page, and it says something like TIP. If you're in a conventional loan, it'll say total interest paid, TIP. That's going to be the total amount of interest you spend in comparison to what you are borrowing. So in many instances, people say, I have this 2.625 interest rate. I'm spending 2.65 in interest. That is not the case. You're spending more like 50% in interest. So that $500,000 loan's $250,000. If you scale that up, you're looking at a 5.25% interest rate. Around there, you're going to spend about 100% of what you borrow in interest. Rates aren't at 5.25% right now. This is the end of 2025, and rates are kind of in that high 5, low 6 range. They were in the high 6, low 7 range at one point. People are in those. Determining what is the value add for you. Is it more valuable for you to keep more money in your pocket, or is it more valuable for you to stick into the standard way of financing? You know, it's almost kind of like this red pill, blue pill situation. Do you want to just be satiated and involve yourself with what everybody else is doing and just go with the flow because that's what you've been told and that's the best thing for you because somebody else is telling you what the best thing for you is, or putting in a little bit of work and looking at other options and having your eyes opened to something completely different? Different way of handling finances, a different way of handling paying off debt. I mean, here's the deal. Imagine if you had a couple extra bucks that you could stick to your mortgage, paying down your interest expense, but not losing access to that money. So in an emergency, when both people or yourself may lose access to income, and when you want to access equity in your home, you need to show income to get money out of your home. If you don't have the ability of showing that you have money coming in, you can't pull money out. Now, sure, there are other ways of pulling money out, but we're trying to talk about not spending money in interest, not talking about, yeah, you could do this hard money loan and figure out what 14, 15, 20% interest rate is going to do. And maybe that's needed to be done. Maybe that first step of going backwards so that you can take the right step moving forward to put you onto the right path is what you need to do. We want to try and encourage individuals, even if you don't ever end up utilizing us, but just trying to ask the right questions to figure out, look, I'm here. I got myself into a pickle. COVID did damage on me, and I need to figure out how to get out of this $200,000 worth of other debt, not my mortgage debt, just other debt. I have all this equity in my home. I have $500,000 home, I owe 100 grand, but I have all this other debt at 9, 12, 30% interest. I can't pay anything off. I'm stuck. I don't want to get rid of my 2.75 interest rate, but the expense of this debt over here would be like having a $700,000 loan at 2.75. Looking at what's more important, the number that you have on your 30-year mortgage, which really isn't all too attractive when you look at what you're spending in interest, or how long you're going to live in the property, or what events are going to happen in the future, known or unknown. We're just trying to say, let's try and ask the right questions. We want to have the information. We want to have the discussion with you to say, hey, look, this is my situation. Here's what I know. Here's what I don't know. Is this something that works for me? And if it's not something that works for you, hopefully we can find a solution of saying, look, this isn't something for you right now. If you were to go about doing it like this, paying this off, yes, maybe you do need to get cash out into a regular 30-year mortgage so that you can at least get rid of this thing over here that's just burdening you, slowing you down from achieving your goals, so that you can take that step backwards and get onto the path to move forward, onto the highway, instead of standing inside of the forest, hacking down trees, trying to get through from point A to point B. Figuring out what your goals are. If it's paying off debt, great, let's figure out how you can pay off debt. If it's, I want to buy real estate, great, let's figure out how you can buy real estate. If it's, I want to pay off debt, and then I want to buy real estate, and then I want to do this, and I want to build generational wealth for my family, let's get you out of the trap by changing how you think about it. Imagine putting in a couple extra hours of work, changing how you think, and saving you thousands and thousands of dollars. Something that costs you nothing, having a conversation and learning about your scenario, and maybe having that difficult conversation. Hey, look, you really shouldn't be spending money on this. Not right now. Let's first get you on the path, and then let's work on going down the things that are more important for you. What are you trying to accomplish? We're trying to talk to those individuals, the people that are curious enough to ask the question to us so that we can at least provide a sounding board to you to say, hey, look, this might be option A, option B, option C. What one fits within your goals better? You're going to know more about your life than we'll ever know about your life. It's a conversation. It's not a lecture. So we encourage you guys to just give us the chance to have a conversation with you. We can walk you through anything that you have questions about. And if it doesn't have to be this loan product and you want to start to look into profit and loss loans or bank statement loans, we have those too. We have normal conventional loans. We just are saying this product is the upper echelon of products. There is no better product for individuals in terms of reduction in interest than this product. So that's why we're here. We're just trying to provide education and get to those individuals that say, hey, this is a scam, that doesn't work. Let us show you the map. I encourage you, give us a conversation. Call us, I want to help. Final question that we normally get is what's the all-in-one based off of? So how is the interest rate determined? And a couple things associated with it. So yes, this loan is a variable interest rate. It adjusts on a monthly basis, meaning that when rates come down, and we're not talking about the 10-year treasury, and we're not talking about the Fed rate, we're talking about the 30-day SOFR. That's the index. That's what this loan is based off of. The index is the 30-day SOFR. That's the thing that moves with the market. Now we add something to it, it's called the margin. That margin for this product is something that you get to choose. So just like a 30-year mortgage, you can choose to buy your rate down, which is just going to be a higher cost. Just like in a 30-year mortgage, you can choose to buy your rate down. Same concept. Alternatively, this loan also has a higher margin, meaning the higher the margin you choose, the lower the cost is going to be. So depending on what that index is, that month we add it to your margin, and that gets your fully indexed interest rate. That is what your loan is going to be based off of on a monthly basis. Obviously, guys, I really appreciate you checking out this video. You know, this was kind of a freestyle video, so I really appreciate you giving us some of your time. Again, feel free to click the like button, subscribe if you have some interest in some of these things. We'd be interested in talking more about what you guys are curious about as well. Thank you so much. Peace.